I think everything changes. I think everything should change. We had come up with a new tagline for Channel 4, I think 2021, called Altogether Different, which was about the idea that within Britain it is a huge country full of difference and contrast and all of those things, and actually where those things join together and intersect, that's where conversation happens and debate and progress. And actually we have, within the culture wars particularly of the last 5 to 10 years, being told that difference is the thing that divides us, whereas at Channel 4 we believe the opposite, that actually it's the thing that unites us and is the thing to celebrate. So that's kind of what we wanted the idents to do. The project is, in its essence, 25 completely unique films that are all stitched together, created by 17 different filmmakers, artists, contributors. It's also where creative direction was so fundamental to the project, because you had all of these people writing what they knew. They were so immersed in maybe their one world or their two worlds. And so it was our job, along with Daniel Wolfe, to kind of sit across the whole project. And, you know, Mike and I would sit and constantly move things around on a wall, because you're going, right, we had, when we asked people for ideas, this group of people, we ended up with about 500 and we needed 25. So it became this whole thing of, well, if you move that thing over there, how does that change the context of what it sits next to? And how does that shape the contrast of that set? And how does that set then affect the whole kind of matrix?
Most projects, you're trying to build some kind of like coherence between your edits or your scenes, and this was like totally opposite, and we were actually actively pushing be different, change the scale of the move, change the scale of the camera, which changes the scale of the four, change the orientation of the camera, different techniques, different times of day, different formats, and all of that really is just, I can't remember a project where you kind of had that before, but it still kind of sits together because you've got the main ingredients of the system. The kind of interesting thing was developing systems in which, because every project you kind of develop systems on how to work, how to creatively solve problems. One of the difficult things of this was working with so many creative people, but that's what made it so rich, and that's what we really wanted to deliver on.
We had never worked together before, and we very quickly established a shorthand and understanding and all of those things, which I think came from just an instinctive thing of going, okay, these are the people that I want to spend the next 12 months sort of sitting in dark rooms, panicking with about how we're going to bring this thing to life.
We had different scales of camera, so we had different scales of motion control rig. And what that does, if the bigger the move, the bigger the four. So when we're shooting on location, we're always on like a Cyclops, which is like the biggest motion control rig. I think it's in Europe. Mm-hmm. But then, we're also doing tabletop stuff where we're on like a different rig called a bolt rig, and that's super small. But those have still got to move at a sort of comparable speed for the scale. So there's loads of maths and working stuff out. That just like melts your mind. And without visual effects and all these great thinkers and kind of the crossover of disciplines, so like the camera department working with VFX, working with motion control, everyone kind of and set build. So all the set builds are built to the dimensions that we've built in CG, so that it all, like I say, works sort of millimeter accuracy. I think there was 7 different sound designers on the project. Will Cohen oversaw it all, and then he did the mix of everything. And what we did is start blending things, so you start to hear something from the incoming scene before you see the incoming scene, and you hear that scene drifting out into the next scene, and so it makes this more kind of like fluid sequence. We had music kind of drifting in and out, and it occasionally would spread from one scene to the other, or it would sound there was a diegetic element in one scene, and then more as a kind of overarching piece of music that worked with the film. And music really brings that emotional kind of element to any piece of imagery.
There's also a sense of life in the sound, which was really important. So when you have either the father and son at the seaside, which Mike and Jim directed,
I'd rather be beside the sea.
or whether you have the school leavers, which Louis McCourt directed,
Or don't fear the future, or be afraid to fail.
or even going into the Zoroastrian, when you're in the living room, which Saman directed.
Dundee Kate the village fate, scratch the pattern off the plate, and everything in between.
All of those, just off the top of my head, they all have human sound within them. You hear whether it's the prayer within the living room, whether it is the the kind of just the chatter of a playground. You have a sense of life, and I think that is also what drives home just the sense of familiarity within it, and the sense of it just feeling like the fabric of Britain. We always knew we wanted whoever wrote the words to also say the words, because it sort of meant that they became the final artist, if you like, of the piece. John Joseph Holt, who founded the magazine Law, who's never written for film before, but again, I just love the way that John writes. Even on Instagram posts, there is a capturing of how we live now, but also this just inherent sense of hope. And I think that's what we wanted it to have. Channel 4 is not, it's not a saccharine brand, and we didn't want to paint a picture of Britain that felt untrue. I think everything changes. I think it's entirely appropriate that things change. I think the one thing that doesn't is a belief in better and a belief in creativity. And I think, as long as Channel 4 holds true to that, I think it will always be a really important part of our culture.